Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Hunters Hill Council number 4461. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet tonight and the waters that surround us, and I pay my respect to the elders past and present.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good, and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please have a seat. I don't believe we have any apologies this evening. Are there any declarations of interest? Confirmation of the previous minutes. There are two sets of minutes here. The meeting of May 13, Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Are there any comments? Those in favour? Against? That's carried. The meeting of May 20. Moved Councillor Crasso, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? I put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Thank you. We have a speaker tonight, and we'll start with. We may even have a couple of speakers. Mr. Tony Saunders, would you like to address us?
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, I don't think I was addressing. I thought it was the President of the Historical Society.
All right, thank you.
Chris Schofield.
Thank you. Mr. Chris Schofield, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Hunters Hill Historical Society, I'm pleased to present to Council our latest publication, A Brief History of Hunters Hill. This booklet is a sister publication to our earlier Hunters Hill Heritage Walks. Although there have been several books about our suburb produced over the years, we saw a need for a smaller, almost pocket-sized, concise edition to update and replace one written back in the 1970s by long-standing town clerk and local historian, the late Roy Stuckey. Incidentally, his interest and commitment to local history is carried on by his daughter, one of our current committee members, Jan Griffiths. For this latest publication, we have to thank another Historical Society member and history academic, Dr. Beverly Sherry, whose Dictionary of Sydney web text we have reproduced. Adrian Black, who is known to Council, was responsible for the layout. And I should add, our patron, Mayor Mark Bennett, has written the foreword to it. However, we have to thank most sincerely the Mostyn Family Foundation, led by Richard Mostyn, who is with us this evening, for underwriting the cost of the booklet's production. Richard's father, Bob Mostyn, is a stalwart committee member of the Historical Society. And I understand we have Bob to thank for once saving the old Woolwich Public School from burning down. It happened during the time of the Second World War. Born and bred in Hunters Hill, Bob was a teenager and was living nearby. Someone raised the alarm that there was a fire at the school, and Bob rushed out with a hose to extinguish the flames before they took hold. Like the old schoolhouse, we can be justly proud of the many delightful buildings and houses set among the lush landscapes and tree-lined streets and bounded by water, which give rise to our municipality being known as Australia's first garden suburb. However, what Bob's and other reminiscences show is that more than anything else, it is the people through the ages who truly make a place. From artisans to artists, from professionals to politicians, they have all made their mark in some kind of way in Hunters Hill and beyond. The other day, I and Society Secretary Tony Saunders went on a river-borne reconnaissance of Hunters Hill shoreline to observe and reflect on what has changed over time. What became clear was that the shoreline is in constant flux, with new mansions being constructed and many old homes and gardens being renovated and remodelled. The trip also confirmed what most of us have known anyway, that Hunters Hill's best face can only be viewed from the water. The concise history of Hunters Hill attempts in words and pictures to encapsulate the people and places that have made this suburb what it has become, a desirable oasis in one of the world's great cities. The Society should be making this booklet freely available to those in the community who are interested in learning more about our unique heritage. Copies can be picked up at the museum. Other copies will be distributed to local schools and libraries and elsewhere. It's oft been philosophically stated that those who ignore or cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In other words, while looking at what is happening in the present and planning for the future, it's also important not to forget the foundations that were laid back in yesteryear and from which we reap the benefits in Hunters Hill today. Mr. Mayor, Councillors, I'm delighted to commend a brief history of Hunters Hill to you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schofield, would you stay with us just for a moment? Councillors, are there any questions or any comments? Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you. I've only had a flick. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to reading it with a cup of tea, and thank you for your presentation. It was also very interesting. How many copies were made?
5,000.
5,000. It's just the sort of thing that would be a wonderful way to welcome new residents to the suburbs. So
it would.
Yeah.
Certainly we have stocks available in the museum, and we will make them freely available to those who ask.
we should let the local real estate agents know. They might even chip in next time we've got a rerun.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
I'm not sure if is there a way we can put it at the front desk? Maybe
Yes.
have copies available there?
We can.
So yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Williams.
Chris, I was just wondering, because this is probably in a digital form, have you thought about putting it up on your website?
Yes, we will be doing that, like we did the other one. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, just a
Councillor Logan.
comment, just following on from what Councillor Crasso was saying. This would be a perfect gift to add to the gifts we give our new citizens when we do our citizenship ceremonies as well.
Absolutely. That would be great. And we'd be happy to assist the council with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other comments? Well, I'd like to thank you very much for the effort you've gone to and to the Mostyn family. Thank you very much. These things re-establish our place in the community and our place in Australia, and I think it's a wonderful area. I'm delighted to live here, and I was delighted you allowed me to become a member of the Historical Society recently. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations to you all on what you've achieved, and thank you very much for the presentation. Councillor Williams.
Oh, I'm just going to raise an issue with the Mayor. I was just wondering, Mr. Mayor, if you have the right to put a motion forward to Council, whether or not you'd like to move a motion that congratulates the Historical Society for their efforts and thanks them for
Yes.
the contribution to our history and to the importance of maintaining that history.
Yeah, sure. It's a good suggestion. So I'll put a motion that we thank you for your work and the work you do continually, for the publication that will inform us better about our municipality. Thank the Mostyn family for supporting this very important piece of work. 5,000 copies is a lot of copies, and I'm sure there was a lot of work in preparing this over the last 12 months. So thank you very much, and I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Williams. Anybody else wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for the suggestion. Thank you. So we've got a busy program tonight. You're all welcome to stay for the program tonight if you like. But if you leave, we won't be offended.
Thank you.
We should be quickly.
I think I might be.
We'll move on to item 2.1, the mayoral ball. I'd like to move the recommendation. This is an opportunity for us. Thank you, Councillor Miles. Second it. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and it comes out of some work that was done quite some time ago by some of the councillors to establish an inclusive playground, and it's had wide support amongst the councillors, and I'm sure we'll have in the community. This is an opportunity for us to bring the community together on something which I'm sure we all agree on, and that's the children in our community who might use a playground like this. So I commend this motion to you. We've had some backwards and forwards even as late as today on the date of the proposed ball, and that seems to have settled in on September the 14th. So I move the motion. I've spoken to the motion, I guess, also. Is there any discussion on this, please? Councillor Williams.
In support, Mr. Mayor. It's a great initiative of yours. I know you've personally thought of it and have been pursuing it. It's important that we provide those additional funds if possible, or supplement those funds to ensure that the inclusive play space is delivered. And it will not only just benefit our children, but I'm sure it'll benefit other people of all ages. Just a bit of history. We just talked about history. Many years ago, it was the tradition of the mayor to hold a biennial ball. That was done for many years, and the funds that came from that process were also put to some good cause in Hunters Hill. So not only a great initiative, but also continue on a bit of our history. So I think it's important that the community have opportunities to come together, enjoy themselves, and contribute to good causes. And this will be another good outlet for that.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Miles.
Just to say, and it's great that we're going to reinvigorate or reinvent the mirror ball. I think that's something that we should probably look at doing in the future as well. But particularly, I guess, to thank Beck Ho and Councillor Crassoy for bringing this particular issue to light, and Councillor Collins, who's on the committee, but particularly to Beck and to Councillor Crassoy. This wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't even be on our agenda were that not to have been the case. And the fact that we've raised a certain amount of funds and we're looking to raise more and actually get to a practical completion on this thing is sort of a testament to the effort of a few, and obviously we will all chip in where we can. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking this on. But this is something that I think we can really aim to get to in this term of council.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, councillors? I point out the fact that I'd like to read just part of this, that the council's resolved to commit 10% of the project cost up to $50,000 for the inclusive play space. Money we raise at the event in September will add to that $50,000 on behalf of the residents. And we have recently received an Everyone Can Play grant of $200,000 from the New South Wales State Government to assist in the delivery of the project. And I think it's important that we thank the Minister Honourable Anthony Roberts, for his support on this project. And he I believe, will be joining us on the evening. So thank you very much to Minister Roberts. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item we have is 4.1, development applications determined under delegated authority in May 2019. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Williams.
Just one question, Mr. Mayor, in relation to the second DA 2015-1017-2. I was just wondering, those works from my observation seem to be going on for quite a while now, but it was only just approved on the 7th of May. Is this a new application through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager? Or is this validating the existing work that's made?
To Mr. Crickets?
Through you, Mayor, this is only an amendment to the initial approval. So it's a clause 4.55 modification regarding altering the balcony at the lower ground level. So the approval's a while ago. This is just an amendment to that approval.
So this is the section 96.
The old section 96,
Okay.
4.5.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further queries, councillors? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. 4.2. Report on legal matters. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Any queries on that? Councillor Williams?
Mayor, through you to the General Manager, there appears to be a few blank pages in here. I assume that they're just read as blank or...
Photocopying errors, I've been told.
Okay,
Councillor Williams?
that's all right, just making sure I haven't missed
Oh,
it.
no, I take it.
Any further queries? Can I put the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. We move to quarterly budget review 8.1 as of March 31st, 2019. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
I've no comment at this stage, Mr Mayor.
Any other councillors wishing to comment on this? I put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. We move on to 8.2, summary of council investments as at 31st of March and the 30th of April 2019. Moved Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Williams. Councillor Collins.
Just a question. I know we discussed getting a financial. Has that come anywhere?
I made a comment about it in the report. Not as yet. Focus has been on getting the budget quarter review done, but that will be soon.
Okay.
Did
that query relate to the investments and the dates of investments and things like that?
It's just about seeing whether we can get external professional advice about getting the maximum rates.
Okay.
We've got another couple on the same day.
Right.
At a 1.1% difference on
All right.
to March. So yeah. Anyway.
Thank you. Any further queries? We'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. We move on to Code of Meeting Practice. Moved Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Williams. Councillor Sanderson, I think you had an amendment to this. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I don't get people concerned about the number of amendments we had last time. I've just found there's a single missing word as it's printed in the agenda on page 50 of the business paper. Clause 13.13b in the fourth line after reasonable, the word time has been left out.
By the councils for a reasonable time to prepare a report.
Yes, so I'd like to, with all the work that I put into this one, I'd like to move the motion and just with that minor amendment to include the word time.
Councillor Crassley.
I just have a question. I might through you, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure who it's to because I'm not sure who did it, but possibly we can. Just for the acknowledgement of country, I'm just curious because I think the request was to review the acknowledgement of country, not just the wording. I'm curious who was consulted in doing that.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the wording was drawn from LG New South Wales as well as Premier and Cabinet's wording. So the way it's drafted is council can choose which options they feel are most appropriate.
Just because the Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council directions on this that we actually ask permission to give an acknowledgement of country, not just receive it from another body, that we actually ask permission and also that we acknowledge the people whose land we're meeting on. So there's only one of these that does that. So I'm just wondering if
like us to review it?
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
It's just that if we're going to do it, we should do it properly
I think
and
we do it
respectfully.
properly.
Yeah.
And I think that there was originally a motion put to council by Councillor Meredith Shield, was considered at the time. I had our PA go back and check it about a year ago again to see what we could and couldn't do. And I also checked with the person who wrote it. So I know a little bit about it. And
So that's all I'm asking. If we've done all that,
we have done that.
yeah.
We have done it. Our PA checked it. So, but we'll check it again to make sure we've got it right. We certainly don't want to offend anybody. Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Surely the protocol officer at Department of Premier and Cabinet, that's the pro forma that they use?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the wording is from Premier's.
Premier and Cabinet.
And one is from LG New South Wales.
Yes.
What's the
I don't think we're obligated to do this.
No.
It's a decision of council, it's a motion of council, and the one we use is at our discretion. So, and there are lots of them being given, and it's an acknowledgement of country, not a welcome to country, of course, so
No, it's acknowledgement, yeah.
we need to get it right. Okay? Any further questions, comments? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Uh, 8.4. It's the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal Annual Report and Determination of Councillor Fees, 1920. Move. Do you have a mover? I'll move it.
I'll move it.
Seconded, Councillor Williams. I don't think there's a lot I need to say this. I think we've debated it 4 times in the last 12 months. But I know we have some people who would like to do this differently. So I'm speaking, moving it and speaking for it. Is there anybody who'd like to speak against it? Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have debated this a number of times, but that's more about the pay cut. This is again another pay rise. My position's been pretty clear, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But what I want to understand, and perhaps I could get some guidance on this, is why when we are given guidance by the independent tribunal of what 9,190 and 20,280, why it is that we take the maximum amount, when if we actually look at it comes from the Act, and I might, at section 240 of the Local Government Act, and I will read this, it's brief. The Remuneration Tribunal is to determine categories for councils and mayoral officers according to the following matters: the size of areas, the physical terrain of areas, the population of areas and the distribution of the population, the nature and volume of business dealt with by each council, the nature and extent of the development of areas, the diversity of communities served, the regional, national, international significance, other matters that the Remuneration Tribunal considers relevant, and other matters that is prescribed by the regulations. On all those markets, Hunters Hill Council is at the far bottom end according to the tribunal. We are the smallest. We are the least we're definitely the smallest in New South Wales. We're probably the least complex because we have the highest amount of, I believe the highest percentage of rates income, single source income. May not be the highest, but it is very high. Population is small, I think the smallest. By every measure that the Remuneration Tribunal picks out these groups, we are the smallest. And at the higher end, we've got councils like Willoughby, who I think have about 85,000, and they're trying to get, they actually put in a submission to try and get, bumped into the higher category. And we're knocked back because at 80,339, they're below the population requirement of 100,000. And to get into that next category, you need revenue of 150 million. and we're only 15 million. So I just don't understand why we are going up by 2.5%, which is less than inflation, which I believe is 1.3%. And I think that if this is just going to be an automatic thing, I believe that every councillor that wants to support giving themselves a pay rise tonight should get up and explain to the community why they think they deserve it. Because we are the smallest council. The Remuneration Tribunal would, in the spirit of that, would be saying we're closer to 10,000, not 20,000. And I just don't see any justification for hugging at the higher end of this scale every year when we should be paring it back, and if anything, paring it back, but at the minimum, just leaving it as it is for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody wishing to speak for the motion? Councillor Williams.
As the seconder of the motion, I'm happy to speak for the motion, Mr. Mayor. Just like to correct one thing. We're not the smallest council in New South Wales, far from it. We're the smallest council in Sydney. So I think we've got to get our facts straight. I think it's important that we look at, and it's true, we do have the opportunity to pick a remuneration within a band set by an independent tribunal. But I look at it from two particular aspects. One is equity, and two is effort. And equity, I think Councillor Crassoy spoke very well to that issue previously, that not everybody in the community is wealthy. Not everybody in the community can wear the costs of being elected and involved. And we shouldn't be limiting it to only those people that have means and resources. And it is up to the individual to decide that in terms of where they fit in the spectrum, but it shouldn't be limited by some arbitrary decision by council. So equity is important. The other issue that I think is very important is effort. And we might be so-called small, but that doesn't mean to say that we don't put effort and commitment into what we do. I certainly don't cut corners. I spend a lot of time personally involved in addition to meetings, research, a whole range of things. And to just say that that's not relevant in our decision making around this table, I think is not really representing what councillors do. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Rye, Willoughby, Lane Cove or here. We still have the demand of our residents. It doesn't stop outside these council meetings. I'm constantly in contact, and nowhere near does what we are proposing here cover that cost from personal time, nor my own personal costs in meeting the commitments of councils. Sure, some political parties support and cover costs for their members, but independent councillors don't have that opportunity, nor that access. So it's about equity. It's about making sure people have the ability to be involved with council as a councillor, represent their community. And it's also about effort. And I think councillors put an enormous amount of effort, and this by no means is meant to remunerate that. But it's a reflection of the costs that we put in our personal time, as well as the costs that you put in to pay for things and to go to things. So I think it's reasonable. And from looking around, most councils do look around that sort of level in our band.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody wishing to speak against the motion?
I just have a question.
Thank you, Councillor.
It is, I read it, I did read it Friday and I haven't listened to it again today, so I'm sorry. It is just going up in accordance with CPI kind of, it's just going up on an average as most things go up each year, is that correct? It's not like a pay rise, it's just a incremental increase that most jobs get, is that right? Or no?
I'm not sure what percentage you went up by, but it's what the tribunal sets as the increase. Yep.
could answer that question.
Would you like to? Councillor
It's not
Collins.
CPI, it's part of the public service has a 2.5% inbuilt increase every year. But CPI is 1.6, so it's above CPI.
And the Councillor Collins made that point when he spoke. He said it's in excess of that. Yeah.
Okay. And then also just through you, maybe the General Manager will know, because I know you're in touch with a lot of other councils in the area. Did Ryde Council just pass or put a motion to provide childcare for their councillors during council meetings?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not familiar with that specific resolution, but some councils do provide that.
Right. So anybody?
Thank you. That answers my question.
I think
It's in our budget too, childcare, so we already have it, $2,000 a year.
I don't think anybody's ever claimed it.
But it should be
They've
available.
ever claimed it.
Yes.
So, do you wish to speak for or against the motion?
No, I'm okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Anybody wishing to speak against the motion? Councillor
Yes,
Myers, thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor. Again, for reasons that we have been through even last week at the budget extraordinary meeting, couple of points. I think, yeah, you take on this role and you run for elected office. I don't think, as Councillor Williams just said, any of us walk away from this with a better cash position because of our time on council. That being said, that's not why we do this job. We're performing a community service. We all of us here put our hands up to run for council because we wanted to provide that community service. We also have to accept that we have a deteriorating cash position at council, and peeling back council remuneration 25%, like Councillor Collins and I put to council last week, would improve the budget some $50,000 or so per year, which is not insignificant when you look over a 10-year period at what that would mean. That would put us very comfortably in between the minimum and the maximum that we're being asked to remunerate ourselves in, increasing by 2.5% year on year. We're still increasing the maximum that we can pay ourselves as councillors. We're not increasing, the middle band or the lower band. We're increasing the maximum amount that we can pay ourselves. We are paying ourselves on the upper limit of what we are allowed to under the Local Government New South Wales rule, under the rules of the Independent Tribunal. That being said, I'd like to reinforce Councillor Collins' point that we are not, we are in a band, but we are the smallest metro council in this state. Yes, we all put enormous effort into what we do in this role, but I think for the smallest metro council, and one which deals with less constituents per councillor, even though we may be giving as much time as we can to that, we probably should be looking at peeling back and having a reasonable remuneration, not the maximum that we can pay ourselves. That's not because, I want to take a pay decrease, but I think that the fact that we have a deteriorating cash position, the fact that this could be something that proves to the community that we've got skin in the game and we're serious about addressing that cash position, outside of all the work that we're doing with Property Committee and various other things to try and fix the budget, this is a real thing that we can do that will improve our budgetary position some 50 grand a year. Now, in the context of a big budget, that doesn't seem like a lot, but a lot of our losses year on year are $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 deficits. We could actually make that up by taking a 25% cut to our fees, which is about 5 grand per councillor, and unfortunately a little bit more for you, Mr. Mayor, but that's a really significant thing that I think council could do to say to the community, we understand that there's a management issue with our ongoing cash position, that we have an operational deficit and we're really serious about. Until the other strategies come on board with what we're trying to do with property and various other things, we can take that little cut. And if we want to revisit our remuneration after we're in a more positive position, then I'm all in favour of doing that. But for now, I think that increasing our councillor fees rather than decreasing our councillor fees is the wrong thing to do.
Thank you, councillor. Anybody wishing to speak for the motion? Councillor Sanson.
I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor. Last meeting I mentioned that I thought it was inappropriate at that time. I think, but the debate still happened. But Councillor Crasso, I think, made some excellent points about the contributions that we make. And interesting, I had a look at the a document called Revitalisation of Local Government, which was produced, I think, back around circa 2015, if I recall correctly. It's otherwise known as the Sanson Report. Now, in that report, there was a great emphasis on improving the skills of councillors, professional development and everything else. And the part of that was also increasing remuneration for councillors. I mean, I don't think any of us here would claim that we are paid a great deal for the work we do. I mean, the effort that I'll put in, got feedback to university, Councillor Crasso is also studying in a way that would contribute to council. So the other side of it is that I don't think any of us make any, well, I certainly don't make any additional claims on council beyond that. I think it's far tidier to be paid something that you're happy with and just simply allow the other expenses to come out of my pocket. I'd far rather do it that way than to start to, reduce councillor fees. Thank you.
Thank you. We wish to speak against the motion. For the motion? Right, a reply? I'm not sure there's a big difference between a large council and a small council when it comes to the amount of work councillors do. Certainly in the large councils there are more councillors to deal with the issues. One of the issues that we had to deal with when we were considering the amalgamation was how would one or two councillors deal with all the work from this council if they were part of a bigger council. And we looked at the amount of work they do, and the amount of committee work that councillors do, the amount of functions that councillors attend. And we said it was pretty hard for two councillors to do all the work for Hunters Hill if they were given it as a ward, as an example. I think that's true, and I think if we were in a bigger council we would do pretty much the same amount of work because there'd be more councillors, same lots of committees. I don't think it's a big difference. I think there's an issue here of attraction and retention too. So if we wish to attract councillors to come and do the job, then some councillors, it may be important that there is a remuneration, suitable remuneration for the amount of hours they spend. Once they become a council, they might decide that it's either sufficient for what they do or insufficient. If they decide it's insufficient, we have a turnover of councillors over and over again. And I think it's good to have councillors here for a long term that feel they're appropriately remunerated for the work they do. One of the things that's pretty clear is there are a lot of unsocial hours in being a councillor. A lot of work happens on a Saturday or a Sunday or of an evening, and I think that it's not a normal sort of repayment for those sort of unsocial hours. I think there's a lost opportunity cost too. If you're here or you're spending time in meetings during the day, and a number of the councillors, you're at committee meetings during the day, some of you more than others, but I'm sure you do what you're able to do. And that's time you're not doing your other work and earning money at a much higher rate. And I would suggest to you that the rate we get per hour is nowhere near what you deserve in the real world, any of you. To answer a comment before about a deteriorating cash position, we've been concentrating on our operating result and we've made some decisions on where our operating result would sit. But our cash position is actually a pretty strong cash position. And if you look at our balance sheet, we have a very strong balance sheet. And our balance sheet now is better than what the balance sheet was 3 or 4 years ago. And it's just improving. And I think you have to look at everything when you look at the financials. It's not just enough to look at a single factor. I think we have got opportunities to improve our result for next year. I think we've worked hard at the property, thanks to Councillor Miles insisting we pursue it. I think that's been a great initiative, and I'm very pleased with the way the General Manager's helped us to get that running. I think we have opportunities to look at how we work with other councillors. We have opportunities to share resources with others, and the General Manager and the staff pursuing them very vigorously. So I'm very confident in the future we'll do better. The point I was trying to make last week is we'll get another opportunity in 12 months' time to look at our financial position one more time, and then we'll get an opportunity the year after that to look at it again. So whatever we lock in now is not locked in for 10 years. I think budgeting now for more than 3 or 4 years at any one time is a waste of time, quite frankly. With the world economics the way they are, who knows what's likely to be true in 2 years' time. So as long as we persistently look at it every year, we make sure that we've got the best financial advice, and I welcome your comments, Councillor Collins, because I think you can bring a lot of attention to that over the next few years. So I don't have any hesitation in recommending this motion to you.
May I ask, do you finish your reply? Can I ask for a division?
Certainly can, certainly. So I'll, if we're all done, I'll put the motion and we'll record the names. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Miles and Councillor Collins. We move to 8.5. Moved Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Collins.
Just a question. Do we have the safety audit on this?
Safety audit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not on this list. However, I can provide you with a quick update if you wish.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we have been trying to provide that through the council bulletins as well. Just to let you know that one of the council officers went out with the local police last week and undertook the audits. So we're anticipating that the results of those will be back in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, fantastic. So is that the whole process?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Councillor Williams.
Mr Mayor, through you to the General Manager, page 133, the top line marking in Church Street. I just wonder if I could get some clarification as to, appears to be an inconsistency between the resolution and the progress report. The resolution says that Council requests a further report on the proposal, and then in the progress report says it is going ahead. So I was just wondering, has there been a report that I've missed, but the document doesn't say there's been a report?
Mr. Green.
Can take it on notice, yeah.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll take it on notice.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion, councillors? Put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. 8.6. 8.6. Monthly bulletin on Councillor Wiggle's. Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I just noticed the on page 148, which is the footpaths. Well, I think you know what I'm going to say. So,
Yeah.
Hard to read.
I mean, I don't know what we can do, but.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have a look what we can do in the business paper. I think when it's published each Friday, it's a lot clearer. We'll see what we can manage with the system and increase the font size.
It's also clear on the digital copy.
Oh, is it? Thank you, Councillor.
We all do get a digital copy as well.
Yeah, it was fine on that. So that's
Any further discussion? Just to compliment the staff on that work, the weekly bulletin. I think it's improved the communication between ourselves and the community also. So thank you very much for your work on that. 9.1 minutes of Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting. Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Miles. Are there any comments on that? Put the motion, those in favour, against, that's carried. And 9.2, the report on council briefings held 13th of May, moved Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Collins? Any discussion required, councillors? I put the motion, those in favour, against? And I think at this stage we need to move into committee of the whole, to a confidential committee of the whole. Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Williams. We have a matter which deals with some Thank you. We're back online again, and we've just dealt with a matter in confidential session. General Manager.
So the council considered the report and subsequently resolved that the report be received, and council note that the options to extend contract number 1267 with United Resource Management Group, URM, for the provision of waste collection services for 2 one-year options in favour of council have been exercised.
Thank you very much. Is there any further business, councillors? I'll declare the meeting closed at questions without notice. If you have some, please, if you pass them on. And I'll declare the meeting closed at 8:24. Thank you very much, councillors.